dear students, welcome back. Today's lesson we will be continuing with models, present models, and I want to start with reviewing need to because last lesson we were doing need to. Let's do a quick review and then we will continue. Okay, we said that actually first we started with obligation models. We said that there is must, have to, has to, and need to. We said that must expresses personal obligations, personal rules that we set to ourselves. In have to, we were talking about rules that is set by other people, that there are rules like school rules, work rules, laws. And when we started need to, we said that it both expresses obligation from outside, like have to, and we can use them instead of each other, but need to also expresses needs. When it's used to express obligation from outside, we can use have to instead of it, but when it expresses needs, we need to use only need to. We said that with he, she, it subjects, it gets s at the end of it, and then our verb 1, IUV we use on its own, need to. And when we're talking about modal verbs in general, they all come between the subject and verb 1, and all of them gets verb 1, we said. We gave some examples. We also talked about question form of need to, and our auxiliary verbs do and does come to beginning of the sentence, and our subjects. And we also said that we don't use any more s at the end of need when we're using he, she as subjects, because the auxiliary verb does already consists of s on its own. Now it's time for the negative version of need to, which is don't need to, or it depends on the subject again, doesn't need to. But you will also be seeing needn't to. And it applies for both of them. It applies for every subject. Before we discuss the meaning of it, how do we use it, with which meaning? Before that, I want to show you which subjects we use don't or doesn't or needn't with. With IUV day, I use don't need to, verb 1 and objects, or in here I can also say needn't to. With he, she, it subjects, I use doesn't need to, verb 1 and objects, or again I can use needn't to. Needn't to applies every subject, but doesn't need to only applies for he, she subjects, and don't need to only applies for IUV day subjects. And let's talk about the meaning. Now, in obligation models, mustn't expresses rules, prohibitions, something forbidden. And don't have to or doesn't have to, we said that it's not a rule, but instead it expresses something that isn't necessary. It's not a rule. When we're talking about don't need to, doesn't need to, or needn't to, the negative version of need to, it has the same meaning with don't have to. They mean the same, which means that not necessary. So we can say we use musts in obligation forms. The negative obligation, we only use must and can't. We will also be given examples of can't, but for now, let's continue with don't need to, doesn't need to, or needn't to. You don't need to apologize to her. She is wrong. Here, I could also say needn't to instead of don't need to. They are the same. They used their usage is the same and their meaning is the same. What I'm trying to tell here is that it's not necessary. Since it has the same meaning with don't have to, I could also use don't have to in the sentence as well. My subject, my modal verb, which one would you like to use? Doesn't matter. My verb 1 and objects. And this on its own is a complete sentence. And that sentence's subject is she, its verb and object. It shouldn't be hard to comprehend the meaning of needn't to because we have already studied don't have to, so it's the same. You can use them instead of each other, doesn't matter. She doesn't need to lie to me. I know the truth. Let's see. My subject is she. That's why I used doesn't need to. I could also use needn't to, or I could also use doesn't have to. They all mean the same thing. After the subject, we have modal verb and then verb 1 and then object. It means that action is not necessary because I know the truth. And again, this sentence is on its own a main clause, and this little sentence's subject is I, its verb, and the object. You remember from 2 lessons ago that we mentioned time harmony, tense harmony, and I don't know if you have noticed, but also in this example, this is present simple, this is also present simple. This is present simple, this is also present simple. In meaning-wise and grammatic-wise, we don't actually need a time conjunction to have the time harmony, tense harmony, because this makes sense. The otherwise wouldn't make sense if this sentence would be past, for example. She doesn't need to go to school today is Saturday. My subject is she. That's why I used doesn't need to. I could again use needn't as well, or doesn't have to as well. After the subject, I used my modal verb. Then my verb 1 comes. This is the object. And again, we have one more sentence, and the tenses are in harmony. They are both in present simple. This is subject of the next sentence. This is verb, and this is the object. Looking at the meaning of the sentence, I can understand that since today is Saturday, it is unnecessary for her to go to school. It is unnecessary to go to school because it's Saturday. When do I need to talk to the office manager? A question form builds with WH question. After that, I see an auxiliary verb. I use do because my subject is I. Then need to, my modal verb, and after that, verb 1. And here I see the object of the sentence. In here, did we use this sentence in the meaning of a rule or in a need? In this sentence, it's a rule. And how can I answer it since that it is not a yes-no question? I can only answer in one way. You need to talk to the office manager, for example, on Tuesday. Also, since need to in this sentence used in the meaning of a rule, we could also use have to modal in order to give the same meaning. It would be the same sentence, same meaning, and then I would answer it like you have to. They mean the same. When need to is used in the meaning of a rule. Now we have one more obligation, negative obligation modal. There are only two of them actually. One is mustn't and the other one is can't. The rest of them don't have to, doesn't have to, or needn't to. They don't mean negative obligation. They only mean unnecessary things. So Mustn't and can't mean the same thing, and they can used as the same thing, as the same way. They both are prohibition. They both express prohibition. They are both forbidding something. And it is not something that we do or set to ourselves, but it comes from the outside, so they are both external. These aspects apply both of them. And how do we use them in a sentence? Actually, we studied mustn't, but let's see can't as well. You can't smoke in school. We gave a similar example using mustn't, but this is also helpful. This also means the same thing, can't. She can't wear colorful clothes at work. Again, a rule, something that is forbidding and it is from outside, it's external. But the only usage, the only meaning of can't isn't prohibition. Yes, we have prohibition, but we also have other meanings. Like it also expresses impossibility and not permitted. It has three meanings. She is sleeping right now. She can't be outside. In this example, we are expressing something that is impossible because she's at home and it is impossible for her to be outside. You can't play games until you finish your homework. In this example, it can't expresses something that is not permitted. So there are three usages of can't. We also have can, but I believe that you studied this modal verb in A2, but I want to review it quickly. It's an easy one. When we're using can, we can express ability or permission or possibility. For example, I can play piano very well. In this sentence, can expresses ability. And again, as all of the other modal verbs, it is used right after the subject. And after that, we put verb 1. And it doesn't differ, can, modal verb can, doesn't differ, depends on the subject. You can use the restroom. In this sentence, can gives the meaning of permission. I don't know where she is. She can be at home. And in this example, can expresses possibility. Because I don't know where she is, she can be, or maybe she can't be at home. And that was can. Now we have advice models. When we're talking about advices, there are some modal verbs that expresses stronger advice or weaker advice. For example, when we were studying must, we said that it is strong advice. But now, for example, we will study should, ought to, had better. These are our advice modal verbs, and these three modal verbs are not as strong as must. They are more weaker advices. The strongest is must. Let's see how do we use them. The most common thing, the most common advice modal verb you can see is actually should. Like every other modal verbs, these also are used after subjects in the sentence. Must, should, ought to, had better, and then they get verb 1 and objects. All of them get verb 1. And one more thing that I want to draw your attention on is that had better, there's had, and it looks like that it is past, but it's not. This is present simple. I don't want you to forget that. It can be confusing, but had better expresses present simple. The sentence structure is like this. Let's start with should. You should exercise for a healthy life. I am giving advice. I am making a suggestion. And should doesn't change depending on the subject. It's always the same. I should call my mom. I missed her. Advice. I am advising to myself. It also makes sense. He should play basketball carefully. We are giving weak advices. And should and ought to are the same thing. They are used the same, and the meaning of them is the same. So I could also say you ought to exercise for a healthy life. I ought to call my mom, I missed her. He ought to play basketball carefully. Now you may ask, what are the differences between all of these advice models? Actually, some of the native speakers says that some of them are more stronger or weaker, but in academic English or grammatical structure, there is not that we don't know. So you may hear something like that, for example, should is stronger than ought to, but in academic English there's no such thing, so you can know that, you can remember and put in mind that they're all the same advice. One of them is not stronger or weaker than the other, except must. So we said that we use ought to and should the same way in the same meaning. What about the negative version of them? Ought to doesn't have a negative version. If we want to make a sentence and we want to give a weak advice and we want it negative, we use should or had better not. But we will see had better not later. You shouldn't eat unhealthy junk food. An advice. I shouldn't be late to my date. They shouldn't be rude to me. After subjects, I put shouldn't, my modal verb, and then my verb 1 and object. And now we have had better. Had better, as we said in the first page of advice models, gives meaning. Its tense is present. Don't confuse that. And it has the same weak advice as should and ought to. It is used in the sentence as the same. For example, Peter had better stay at home and rest. It means something like it would be good for him. Had better's meaning can be translated like it would be good. For you to do blah blah blah. So, staying at home and resting would be good for Peter. We have a meaning like that from this sentence. I had better start playing piano again, or I will forget. Again, it would be good for me to start playing piano again, or I will forget. It is something that would be good for me. Let's do the negative of had better, which is had better not. You had better not yell at your mom. It would be good that you didn't do this. It gives the meaning of that. The meaning is this. She had better not steal her sister's clothes. It would be good if she didn't steal her sister's clothes. It means the same thing. So, let's do a quick review of advice models. We said that we have must, should, ought to, had better, and must is the strongest one. It expresses strong advice, and the other ones are weak advice. We don't compare them, the three of them, because they have all the same strength of advice. But we said that ought to doesn't have a negative form. So if I want to make a negative form of weak advice, I can use had better not or shouldn't. And had better tense is present tense. How I use in the sentence is the same as rest of the modal verbs. We started with should. It means the same meaning as ought to. They are used in the same way. We said that shouldn't or had better not are the two options that we can use when we want to express weak advice, negative weak advice. And its meaning is like it would be good if you didn't do this, or blah blah in positive form if you do this. Okay, now we have possibility modal verbs. I know that modal verbs are a bit long and maybe confusing because there are so many modal verbs that give the same meaning. But actually, when you look at them individually, they are really easy to remember and to actually learn. Now, our possibility modals. What are they? May, might, and this might surprise you, but could. These three are our possibility modal verbs in present tense. All of the modal verbs that we have mentioned so far are present tenses actually. We haven't started to study past, which are perfect modals, yet. So these are all present tense. You know, you probably remember may and might from A2, but we only, I think, studied could as the past verb to form of can. But when I am using could, it can have two meanings. So let's start with could. One meaning and two meaning. The second meaning is can's verb to form, which is in the past. But this is not what we're talking about here when we want to give the meaning of possibility modal verbs when we're using could. This present could gives us the meaning of possibility. And this is the one that we are studying right now, not this one. And you may ask how we are going to understand the difference between them, if it's used in this way, in this meaning, or this meaning. You can understand it from the context of the paragraph or sentence that you're dealing with, or in a conversation. You can understand or assume from the context. So, as we said, we will study this. It gives the meaning of possibility in present. This is important. If it is a can's verb to form, it's in the past, and it is different than the first one. For example, take your umbrella with you. It could rain. We're not sure, but we are talking about a possibility, and this sentence gives us the meaning that it is possible that today will be raining. As we said, it is possibility. Be careful while driving. Roads could be slippery. Again, we're not sure, we don't know for certain, but it is a possibility. And when you look at the place in its place in a sentence, again, it is right after the subject and right before verb 1, and it doesn't change depending on the subject. It is always the same, and it gets verb 1 after it. May and might, they mean the same thing. They are used as the same thing. And you can use each one of them, to give the same meaning instead of the other one. For example, I could also write these examples using may and might. Take your umbrella with you. It may rain, or it might rain. Be careful while driving. Roads could be slippery. Roads might be slippery or maybe slippery. They have the same meaning, the same possibility. none of them is stronger possibility than the other or weaker. They are the same. Now, that is it actually for present tense models. So let's do a quick review, and then we will be studying their past form, which we call models second models, or models perfect. So let's go to the beginning. Let me see the page. Okay, we are talking about present tense models, and we started with obligation models. They express necessity or rules, we said. They are need to, have to, and must. We started with their positive forms. All of the modal verbs come between subject and verb. And when we're using modals in present tense, which we did, we use verb 1 after them. We said that must gives expresses personal obligation. The responsibility that we take, it doesn't come from outside, or strong advice to someone else. We did its examples. When we're talking about mustn't, we said that it forbids something. It expresses prohibition. We're talking about rules that you can't do, and it also is equal to can't, but can't have other meanings as well. Every place that we can use mustn't, we can use can't, but we cannot use mustn't in every place that we use can't because of can't's other meanings. So we also did question forms, and then we did have to. The difference between must and have to, we said have to expresses external obligation. We're talking about rules, positive rules, and it changes depending on the subject we used in our sentence. With IUVD subjects, we use have to verb 1. With he, she, it subjects, we use has to verb 1. We did question, but by the way, we can use must. We can't use must and have to in each other's places. When it comes to don't or doesn't have to, again, depending on the subject, we said that it is, again, different from mustn't because instead of expressing prohibition or forbidding, it gives the meaning of unnecessary actions. We're not talking about rule or forbidding something. With, again, IUVD, I use don't have to. With he, she, it doesn't have to. And of course, our verb once. We did questions, and we talked about need to. Need to has two meanings, two usage. One, to express obligation, again from outside, as same as have to, but it also has the meaning of, it also expresses needs. So when we use it to express obligation from outside, we can use have to also instead of need to. But when we're talking about needs, strong needs, we can only use need to. And the subjects, with subjects he, she, it, we add s at the end of need. And IUV need is on its own. And after need to, of course, I use verb 1. Now, we talked about the negative form of need to, which can be don't need to with IUV subjects and doesn't need to with he, she, it subjects, or we can use needn't to with every subject. It applies to every subject, and we said that it has exactly the same meaning with as don't have to or doesn't have to. It expresses unnecessary things, actions. We said that we can use needn't to in anywhere we want. The subject doesn't matter. Then we also talked about can't, and when we're talking about negative obligation models, to give that meaning we only have two models actually to give the meaning negative obligation, which are mustn't and can't. Mustn't's only meaning is actually negative obligation, but can't has two more meanings, so don't confuse that. We said impossibility or not permitted are also the meanings of can't. Then we briefly talked about can. We use it to express ability or permission or possibility, and we gave the examples. Then we talked about advice models. We said that must is the strongest one and the other have the same strength of advice and they are a lot weaker than must. O2 doesn't have a negative form, so if we want to give a weak negative advice, we can use had better not or shouldn't. And keep in mind that had better's tense is present tense. It's not in the past. We talked about should, shouldn't, had better not, and we talked about possibility models, may, might, and could. Don't be surprised when you see could, because yes, we know this one, the second use, is actually the one that we most saw. It's the verb to form of can, and its tense is in the past. But the one we're talking about, possibility models in present, it's this one. And we gave some examples using possibility models, and we said that they all have the same strength of possibility, so I can use them to give the same meaning. Now, a few more examples, and on our next lesson we will be continuing with perfect models. For example, you don't have to clean the whole house. We can do it together. I am talking about an action that is unnecessary or not necessary. And to give that meaning, I used don't have to because my subject is you. I could also use needn't to or don't need to. We have to be at work at 8:30 exactly. Now in this example, I'm talking about a rule, an obligation that is external. That's why I used have to. I could also use need to. They're both correct because my subject is we. And if the subject was he, I could use needs to or has to. I must finish all the housework today. Now, this is an obligation, but it's not a rule. It's not coming from outside. It is not determined by someone else. Instead, I determined it. I decided that I must finish it. So, it is my responsibility to do that. The sky is a little cloudy. It could snow or rain. Now, in this sentence, I can see that the tense is present simple. So, could in this sentence means possibility. And it's not in the past, it's rather in present, and it expresses a possibility. Not a strong one. She must apply for a job. She is broke. Now, in here, I use must to express a strong advice. Okay, that's it for today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed and understood it. Make sure that you study well for our next lesson. We will be continuing with modal perfect, second modals. See you later. See you on the next lesson.